I was 19 the night my life split into a before and an after. If you had walked into the diner and seen me then, hair tied back with a rubber band, uniform 2 sizes too big, you would have sworn I was just another tired girl trying to survive. Grease clung to the air, mixing with the bitter smell of burnt coffee. The neon sign outside flickered in and out, painting the cracked window in sickly red light. It was almost 2 a.m., the dead hour when even the city seemed to exhale and go quiet. That was my world, a chipped counter, a broken jukebox, and the soft clatter of plates that never seemed to end. I worked the night shift because it paid a little extra. Extra meant my kid brother could stay in school 1 more month. Extra meant my mother's pills, the ones she pretended she didn't need. My feet burned and my back felt like it belonged to someone 3 times my age, but I held on to that word, extra, like it was a life jacket. Table 4 needs their check, Anna, my boss shouted from the kitchen window, wiping his forehead with a greasy towel. He always shouted. Not because he was cruel, I think, but because life had shouted at him first and he never learned another way to speak. I grabbed the check, forced a smile at the drunk couple arguing over who would pay, and moved on. You learn to float above the noise working in a place like that. You smile, you nod, you disappear. That was the rule. Stay invisible, stay safe. The bell over the door rang, that same dull, tired chime, and the air in the diner changed. It wasn't something you could see, not exactly. It was in the way the old men at the counter stopped talking in mid-sentence. The way the cook, Carlos, froze with the spatula in the air, eyes darting to the window. Even the jukebox, already low, seemed to fall silent. I looked up. A man stepped in first, broad shoulders, black coat, eyes like dark glass. Another followed, then another. Suits at 2 a.m. didn't belong in our part of the city, and they definitely didn't belong in our diner where most customers counted change before ordering coffee. Behind them, he walked in. He wasn't the tallest, not the biggest, but somehow every space bent around him. His suit was charcoal, perfectly cut, the kind you only see in magazines or on wanted posters. His tie was loosened like he'd just left somewhere far more important than our cracked vinyl booths. His hair was streaked with silver at the temples, not from age but from a life that moved too fast. But it was his eyes that stayed with me, calm, heavy, as if he'd already seen everything in the room and weighed it. No one said his name out loud, they never did. I'd heard it in whispers in the alley behind the diner while taking out the trash. Leon el Leon. The Lion. Owner of the street, people said. Owner of debts that never got paid twice. Men disappeared in stories that had him at the center, and somehow even the stories were afraid. Carlos lowered his eyes and mumbled something under his breath that sounded like a prayer. I swallowed and reached for the coffee pot, forcing my hands not to shake. They sat in my section, of course. 4 men around one table and him at the end, back to the wall, face to the door. The position of someone who understood danger in a way I could only guess at. Anna, my boss, whispered, stepping close enough that I could smell sweat and panic on him. Take table 6, and don't stare, just be quick, be polite. As always, I whispered back, but he had already turned away. I walked to their table, each step too loud in my own ears. Their conversation was low, in fragments of business and numbers and places I'd never be allowed to see. A brown envelope lay on the table by his elbow, thick and swollen. One of the men slid it closer with 2 fingers. No one touched it again. What can I get you? I asked, keeping my voice steady, eyes somewhere around their shoulders, not their faces. The Lion didn't answer right away. He watched me and I felt it like pressure on my skin. Finally, he spoke, his voice low, controlled. Coffee black for all of us, he paused, and something fresh, not that burned bread you call toast. There was no insult in his tone, not exactly. It was worse than that. It was boredom, like everything around him was one more thing that failed to impress. Yes, sir, I said, and hurried away, my heart beating too fast. In the kitchen, Carlos stared at me as if I'd touched a live wire. Don't screw this up, he muttered. You know who that is. I'm not an idiot, I murmured, loading fresh grounds into the machine with clumsy fingers. I've heard the stories. He leaned close. Stories don't scare me, bodies do, you understand. I didn't answer, I didn't need to. The familiar fear curled low in my stomach. I had grown up with it, fear of landlords, of police sirens, of footsteps coming up the stairs at midnight. This was just a different shape of the same thing. Still, something in me pushed back against it. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the weight of too many double shifts, too many people talking to me like I was furniture. Or maybe it was the face of my brother flashing in my mind, the way he'd smiled at me before I left that night, pretending not to be hungry so I wouldn't worry. I brought the coffee to their table, cups on a tray, hands steady now because I refused to let them see I was afraid. I set the cups down one by one. When I reached him, he glanced at my name tag. Anna, he read as if tasting the sound. You should not be working here at this hour. I blinked, caught off guard. Rent doesn't care what hour it is, sir. It slipped out before I could stop it. One of his men looked up sharply, suspicious, but El Leon, he almost smiled, almost. Fair answer, he said softly. I turned to Lave, relief loosening my shoulders when it happened. He picked up the cup, took a sip, and his expression changed, not much, just a tightening at the jaw. He set the cup down harder than necessary. Coffee splashed over the saucer, a dark stain on white. Is this what you call coffee? His voice was louder now, sharp enough that conversations at the counter died away. It's cold. I just brought it, sir, the machine. The machine, or you? His eyes pinned me in place. Do you serve garbage to everyone who walks in here, or am I special? Heat rose in my face. The men around him watched, amused. My boss hovered near the kitchen door, frozen, not daring to come out. This was how it always went. They shouted. I apologized. I swallowed it. I stayed small. I can make a new pot, I said quietly. Fresh. It'll just take a minute. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice dropping so only I could hear. You think a minute of your time fixes disrespect? The word hit me harder than the tone. Disrespect. I thought of all the times I'd bitten my tongue, smiled through insults, turned my face away so strangers wouldn't see my eyes fill with tears. I thought of my mother telling me, endure, Mija, that's how we survive. I thought of my father's boot hitting the door the night he left, his voice slurring, calling us worthless. I had swallowed so much that sometimes I felt like I was drowning from the inside. He raised his voice again. Look at me when I talk to you. That did it. Something in my chest snapped, not cleanly but like an old bone breaking again in the same place. I lifted my eyes to his, expecting to see only anger there. Instead, I saw something else just for a second. Tiredness, loneliness, a man who had been shouted at by life too, then it was gone, hidden behind steel. Answer me, he said. Are you stupid or just careless? The diner had gone completely silent. Even the fryer seemed to hold its breath. Every pair of eyes was on me, the regulars, my boss, his men, the lion himself. I could have apologized. I could have said it was my fault, bowed my head, made another pot. That was the smart thing, the safe thing. But there comes a point when fear stops working, when you are so tired of being small that danger feels almost like relief. My hand was still on the coffee pot, knuckles white around the handle. I set it down on the edge of the table very carefully so it wouldn't shake. If you shout at me again, I heard my own voice, low but steady, coming from a place inside me I'd never dared to open. I'll end you. The words hung there, impossible and real. The man to his right choked on his drink. Somewhere behind me, someone whispered a prayer. My boss whispered my name like a warning and a goodbye at the same time. El Leon didn't move at first. His eyes stayed on mine, searching, measuring. Then slowly he leaned back in his seat. A slow, dangerous smile touched the corner of his mouth. His right hand disappeared beneath the table. His right hand stayed under the table, and the whole diner shrank around that one movement. I couldn't see what he was holding, but I saw the change in his men, the way their shoulders tightened, how their eyes flicked from my face to my chest, measuring distance. The man on his left slid his chair back half an inch, enough space to move, to react. It was a choreography they had rehearsed 1,000 times. Don't move, one of them murmured. As if I could. My heartbeat was so loud I could hear it in my ears. My mouth went dry. For a split second I saw my brother's face in my mind, 14 years old and pretending not to be scared of the dark whenever the power went out. I thought of my mother's quiet humming in the kitchen, the sound I grew up falling asleep to. I wondered if anyone would even tell them how I died, or if I'd just vanish into one more city rumor. He watched me like a man reading a map. No hurry, no panic, just calculation. Repeat what you said, El Leon said softly. I swallowed. Every survival instinct screamed at me to lie, to apologize, to sink to the floor and beg. That would be the smart thing, the safe thing. But I had already crossed the line. There was no halfway back. I said, my voice came out rough like it belonged to someone older, if you shout at me again, I'll end you. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes, not anger, curiosity. Slowly, his right hand came up from under the table. No gun, just his hand, empty, strong, faint white scars across the knuckles. He rested it on the table, palm down, as if to show me he had chosen not to pick up whatever might be hidden below. One of his men exhaled, almost disappointed. Behind me, my boss finally found his courage, or his stupidity. "Sir, I am so sorry," he babbled, hurrying over, wiping his hands on his apron. "She's young, she's tired, she doesn't know what she's saying. Anna, apologize right now." I didn't look at my boss, I couldn't. My eyes stayed locked on the man in front of me. El Leon didn't glance at my boss either. He lifted one finger, a tiny gesture, and my boss froze like someone had pressed a remote. "Go back," he said without looking at him. Just 2 words, calm, "This is between her and me." My boss stepped back so fast he nearly tripped. The lion turned his attention fully to me. "You know who I am," he said, not a question. "Yes," my throat burned. "I've heard stories." "And still you threaten me." He leaned back, studying me. "Why?" I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because fear does strange things to your body. "Because I'm tired," I said. "Tired of being shouted at, pushed around, treated like I'm nothing. You asked if I serve garbage to everyone or just to you. I serve what we have. It's not much, but I try, and I do not deserve to be shouted at like a dog." My voice shook on the last word, betrayal from my body I couldn't control. Nobody does. Silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. His men exchanged a quick look. They weren't used to this, to anyone talking back, to anyone staying alive this long after doing it. He considered me, head tilted slightly. Then he nodded once, like something had clicked into place in his mind. "You hate shouting," he spoke almost to himself. "Your father shouted, didn't he?" The air left my lungs. I hadn't told him anything about my father, about the way he used to slam doors, throw plates, yell until his voice broke, about the night he left and never came back, leaving us with debts and echoes. "How do you?" "Eyes," he cut in. "People who are afraid of anger look at it differently. They don't just flinch, they brace." He held my gaze, and for the first time I saw past the expensive suit and the stories. I saw a boy, just for a heartbeat, someone smaller, cornered, learning very young that the only way to stop being the one shouted at was to become the one everyone feared. It was gone almost immediately, swallowed by the man he'd become. "Sit," he said quietly, tapping the chair opposite him with 2 fingers. Every instinct screamed no. You do not sit with wolves. You serve them, you avoid them, you pray they leave. But my legs moved anyway. I sat. Under the table, his hand shifted. I heard the faintest click, metal against leather. There was a gun down there then, very close to my knees. "You know what they call me?" he asked. "El Leon," I said. "The lion," that almost smile again. "Do you know what a lion does to someone who walks into his den and bares her teeth?" "Kill her," I whispered. "Sometimes," he leaned forward, elbows on the table, "sometimes he keeps her." A chill crawled up my spine. "I don't belong to anyone," I said, the words leaving my mouth before I could taste their danger. "Good," his eyes warmed by a fraction, "that makes 2 of us." He glanced at the cold coffee, still sitting untouched, a dark insult between us. "Bring me a fresh pot," he said, "the best you can manage in this place." It took a second for my brain to catch up. "That's it?" I asked before I could stop myself. His jaw tightened, a flash of irritation. "You would prefer something else?" I shook my head quickly. "No, I just thought that I would kill you in front of all these witnesses." He glanced around the diner, at the old men pretending not to stare, at Carlos peeking from the kitchen window. "I don't spill blood for burnt coffee." He said the last words lightly, but there was steel under them. A warning, this was mercy, not weakness. Don't confuse the two. I stood so fast my chair scraped the floor. "I'll bring it now." In the kitchen, my hands shook so badly I spilled the first scoop of grounds. Carlos grabbed my wrist. "You're alive," he whispered, half in disbelief, half in accusation. "Why are you alive?" "I don't know," I said honestly. I made the coffee like it mattered, like the whole city rested on that pot. Fresh grounds, clean filter, extra seconds to let it bloom. Stupid, maybe, but it was something I could control. When I set the new cup in front of him, his fingers brushed mine by accident. They were warm, steady, not the hands of a man unsure of anything. He lifted the cup, took a slow sip. His eyes closed for half a second. When he opened them, there was something softer there. "Better," he said simply. He reached inside his jacket. The men at the table tensed again, then relaxed when he pulled out not a weapon, but a money clip. He peeled off bills, too many, far too many for a diner check, and placed them under the edge of his saucer. "For the coffee," he said, "and for your courage." "That's too much," I blurted out. "There is no such thing as too much for courage," he replied. "Take it." I hesitated. My boss hovered behind the counter, eyes wide and hungry, already counting that money as his. As if reading my mind, El Leon spoke without looking away from me. "The tip is for Anna," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "If anyone touches a single bill, I will consider it theft from me personally." The entire room froze. My boss's face went pale, then red. "Of course, sir, of course." The lion stood. His men rose with him, chairs scraping in unison. He adjusted his cuffs, that small, precise movement of a man used to control. As he turned to leave, he paused beside me, close enough that I could smell his cologne, clean, expensive, with something darker underneath. He spoke so only I could hear. "This neighborhood is not safe, Anna," he murmured. "Walking home alone at this hour is not smart." "I don't have a car," I whispered back, "and it's only 12 blocks. 12 chances," he said quietly, "for something bad to happen." He stepped away before I could answer and walked toward the door. The bell chimed weakly as they left, the sound of them slipping back into the night. The diner slowly exhaled. My boss stormed over, his fear now safely redirected toward me. "Are you insane?" he hissed. "Threatening a man like that? You want to die, you want us all to die if he ever stops protecting you." "Protecting me," I repeated, stunned. He jabbed a finger toward the cash under the saucer. "You think that's a tip, that's a mark. He put a mark on you, girl. His eyes, I've seen that look before. You're on his radar now." On his radar. I finished my shift in a blur. The money stayed in my apron pocket, heavy as a brick. Every time the bell over the door rang, my heart jumped, expecting to see that grey suit again. He didn't come back. When I stepped out of the diner at 4 a.m., the city felt different. The air colder, the shadows sharper. I clutched my bag close and walked fast, keys between my fingers like claws, the way my mother taught me. Halfway home, I felt it. Someone was following me. The sound of footsteps, not rushed, not hiding, just there matching my pace. I quickened, so did they. I turned the corner onto my street, heart climbing into my throat. Broken streetlights, overflowing trash cans, the old woman's balcony with the dying plants, home, almost. I glanced back. A black car rolled to a slow crawl at the end of the block, tinted windows, engine purring low. My stomach dropped. I broke into a run, lungs burning, keys scraping my palm. I reached our building, shoved the door open, took the stairs 2 at a time. Inside our apartment, my brother slept on the couch, the TV flickering blue light over his face. My mother's room door was closed, a thin line of light underneath. I locked all 3 locks, then pressed my back to the door, listening. Nothing, no footsteps on the stairs, no knock. Just my own breath, ragged. I let myself slide to the floor, the money still in my apron, my whole body shaking now that no one could see. That's when I noticed it. My phone on the floor by the couch, screen lit up. 1 missed call, unknown number, a new message. With trembling fingers, I picked it up and opened the text. It was just 1 line. "You made it home, good, L." I stared at the letter, at the single initial, my heart pounding in my ears. He hadn't just left a tip. He had followed me home. I didn't sleep that night. The message burned on my screen, that single L like a fingerprint on my life. I kept asking myself the same questions. How did he get my number? How long had that car been behind me? Was he outside right now watching our windows? At some point my brother stirred on the couch. "Anna," he mumbled, "you okay?" "Yeah," I lied, putting the phone face down. "Go back to sleep." But I didn't. I sat by the window until the sky turned grey, listening for engines, for footsteps on the stairs that never came. By the time my alarm went off, my thoughts were tangled between fear and something I didn't want to name. It wasn't comfort, not exactly, but there was a strange relief in knowing someone had made sure I got home alive, the kind of protection I'd never had from anyone, least of all my own father. At the diner, everyone had heard. The lion himself, one of the regulars, whispered as I poured his coffee, "And you're still breathing, Dios te cuida, niña." My boss watched me with a mix of anger and awe, like I was a stray dog that had bitten a wolf and somehow survived. Around midnight, Carlos leaned on the counter. "There's a car outside," he murmured. "Been there an hour, black engine running, you think it's—" I didn't look, I didn't have to. "Not my problem," I said, more bravely than I felt. When my shift ended at 2, the diner felt like a thin shield between me and something much bigger. The bell over the door chimed as I pushed it open, cool night air slapping my face. The car was there, same kind of black sedan I'd seen on my street, tinted windows, headlights off, waiting. A man stepped out from the driver's seat, late 30s, solid build, dark coat, not one of the men from the diner, but he wore the same kind of quiet danger. "Anna," he asked. I tightened my grip on my bag. "Who's asking?" "Señor Leon sent me," he said, like that answered everything. "I'm here to take you home." "I don't need a ride," I snapped. "I have legs." He didn't move closer. "Smart man, it's not safe for you to walk alone anymore." "It was never safe," I said, "and I managed." "Before last night you were nobody." His tone wasn't cruel, just factual. "Now every idiot in this neighborhood knows the lion took interest in you. Some will be smart and stay away. Some," he shrugged, "some will think hurting you is a good way to send a message." Cold slipped under my skin. "I didn't ask for his interest," I muttered. "Nobody ever does," he said. "Please get in the car." I turned away from him and started walking. I made it to the corner before I heard them, footsteps from the alley, fast and careless. 3 guys, late teens, early 20s, local faces. I'd seen them hanging around outside the liquor store, seen the way they stared too long when women passed. "Hey, pretty waitress," one of them called, voice thick with cheap alcohol. "Long night." "Keep walking," I told myself, eyes front. Another whistle. "We just want to talk. That okay with your boyfriend, the rich one with the car?" They had seen it, of course they had. I walked faster. One of them stepped in front of me, blocking the sidewalk, breath sour and close. "Come on," he said. "Share some of that rich luck. Maybe he'll give us a tip too." A hand closed around my arm, fingers digging in. My throat went dry. Old fear, familiar and ugly, bloomed in my chest. Then I heard it. "Let her go." The voice from behind me was calm, almost bored. The driver. The guy holding me laughed without turning. Or what? He didn't get an answer with words. The driver moved fast, one step, a twist, a crack of bone and sudden screams. The boy dropped, clutching his wrist. Another swung, the driver sidestepped and put him against the wall with an elbow to the throat. It wasn't flashy, it was clinical, efficient, practiced. The third kid backed away, hands up. "We didn't know, man, we didn't." "Yes," the driver said quietly, "you did." He didn't pull a gun, he didn't have to. The boys ran, dragging their injured friend, cursing and stumbling into the dark. The driver turned to me, breathing a little harder now. "This is the soft version," he said. "Because you were here, don't make me come out here without you next time. Get in the car." My legs moved before my pride could argue. Inside, the leather was cold against my shaking hands. As we pulled away, I stared at the city sliding by in the window, all shadows and orange streetlights. My neighborhood had never looked smaller. "He wants to see you," the driver said. My heart clenched. "Now?" He nodded. "Now." We didn't go to some smoky back room or underground club. Instead, the car climbed into a part of the city I'd only ever seen from bus windows. Wide streets, clean sidewalks, buildings made of glass that reflected the stars back at you like they belonged to someone else. We stopped in front of a tall building with a marble lobby and a doorman who pretended not to notice who was walking past him. Upstairs, an elevator opened into a penthouse that felt like another planet. Floor-to-ceiling windows, city lights spilling in like a second sky, everything polished, minimal, expensive. And yet there was a strange emptiness to it. No family photos, no mess, no life. He was at the window, back to us, jacket off, white shirt sleeves rolled to his forearms, hands in his pockets. He didn't turn until the driver spoke. "She's here, senor. Gracias, wait outside." The door clicked shut behind me. For a moment, it was just the two of us and the humming city beyond the glass. "You didn't answer my message," he said without turning. "I didn't ask you to follow me," I replied. He faced me then, no suit jacket now, just the man underneath it. He looked tired. The silver at his temples caught the light. "You're angry," he observed. I laughed once, short and dry. "You threaten my boss, mark me in front of half the neighborhood, follow me home, get my number without asking, and then send a car like I'm property. What do you expect me to be? Grateful?" Silence, then something like a shadow of a smile. "People usually are," he said, "grateful or terrified, often both." "I'm both," I admitted, "which makes it worse." He nodded slowly, accepting that. "You told me," he said, taking a step closer, "that if I shouted at you again you would end me." His voice was soft to hear without the echo of the diner. "You remember." I didn't exactly forget. "Most people who talk to me that way beg for forgiveness 5 minutes later," he said. "You didn't, you're still not begging, that is rare." "Is that why you're doing this?" I asked. "Because I'm rare." He studied me for a long moment. "Partly. And the other part." He took a breath, the kind you take before opening an old wound. "What was your father's name, Anna?" he asked. The question hit me sideways. "Why?" "Please, Javier," I said slowly. "Javier Morales, why do you care?" His eyes didn't move from my face. "He didn't leave you." My chest tightened. "I was there when he walked out the door." "You were there," he agreed quietly, "when he went to meet me." The room shifted under my feet. "What are you talking about?" He gestured to the couch. "Sit or you'll fall." I didn't want to give him that power, but my knees were already weak. I sat on the edge, fingers knotted in my lap. He stayed standing, as if he didn't trust himself to sit. "Javier worked for me," he said, "many years ago, before you were old enough to remember. He was a good man at home, I think, but he was loyal to me, maybe the only person who ever was." Blood rushed in my ears. "You knew my father." "He used to talk about you," Leon said. "His little girl who loved to draw suns on the wall. Anna, always Anna. He carried a picture of you folded in his wallet until the paper started to fall apart." My throat closed. "My mother said he left us with debts," I whispered. "Screaming, drunk, he never came back." "He came to meet me that night," the lion said, voice low. "We had business, there was an ambush. The bullet that should have gone through my head went through his chest instead." He paused. "He died with your name in his mouth." The room blurred at the edges. I tasted metal. "No," I said, "but it came out weak." "No, you're lying. Why would my mother?" "Because it's easier to hate a man who chose to live," he said gently, "than a man who died for someone like me." A silence. The city lights outside pulsed, but inside everything was still. "You let us starve," I said finally, each word a stone. "If he died for you." His jaw tightened. "I tried to find you and your mother. He never told me your address. He was paranoid, thought he was protecting you. All I had was your name and a faded picture, a little girl with big eyes and crayons in her fist." He walked to a drawer, opened it, and took out a small, worn square of paper. He held it out to me. My hands shook as I took it. It was real, me at maybe 4, hair in 2 messy pigtails, marker stains on my cheeks, grinning like the world was simple. The edges of the photo were soft from too many fingers. "I kept looking for that face," he said, "for years. And then you walked up to my table with burnt coffee and fire in your eyes, and I thought, this can't be. Life is not that poetic." I couldn't speak, tears burned, but they didn't fall yet. My body didn't know which pain to process first. The father I'd hated, the father I'd lost, the man in front of me who was both monster and something else. "So what is this?" I finally managed. "Guilt, is that why you're protecting me now?" He didn't flinch at the word. "Partly," he said again, "but also because when you stood there and threatened me, I saw him. The way he used to look at me when I was nothing. A skinny kid with broken shoes. He's the one who taught me," he hesitated. "Not to bow, not to beg, not to cry where people can see." He met my eyes. "I don't believe in God, Anna, But in that diner I felt like someone gave me a chance to fix one thing I broke simply by existing. One thing. "I don't want your money," I said, though I could feel the weight of the bills still in my apron back in my locker at the diner. "I don't want your world." "Good," he said immediately. "I don't want you in it." I blinked. That I hadn't expected. "I'm going to move you and your family out of that neighborhood," he continued. "Quietly. No one will know it's me. Your brother will go to a good school. Your mother will get the medicine she needs. You will stop working night shifts where every drunk with a bad mood can spit on you." Anger surged up again. "You think you can just buy us?" "I think," he said calmly, "that your father died so you wouldn't have to scrub floors and flinch at raised voices your whole life." His voice softened. "Let me honor that, then forget my name." I swallowed hard, and in return, he gave a small, sad smile. "You never come looking for me, you never join my business, you don't become like me. You live long enough that when people say Javier's daughter, they think of a doctor or a lawyer or, I don't know, an artist, not another ghost in a story about the lion." The room went quiet again. "You kill people," I said, because someone had to say it out loud. "Yes, no denial, no excuse. And one day that will come back for me. Men like me don't get happy endings, Anna. We get headlines and closed caskets. That's why I need you far away from it when it happens." The tears finally came then, hot and angry and helpless. "For years," I whispered, "I hated him, my father. I thought if he ever came back, I'd tell him I didn't need him, that I'd end him myself." Leon's eyes were gentle now, stripped of all the steel. "Then let this be the end," he said quietly. "Not of him, of the story you were told about him. Let it end here with the truth." Something broke and healed at the same time inside my chest. I don't remember crossing the room, but suddenly I was standing in front of him, the photo clutched in my hand. "I don't forgive you," I said, voice raw. "Not yet, maybe never, but I believe you." He nodded, as if that was more than he deserved. "That's enough." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple, battered key on a ring. Not gold, not flashy, ordinary. "This is an apartment on the other side of the city," he said. "The rent is paid for a year. No one knows it's connected to me, not even the landlord. Take your family and go, tomorrow, tonight if you can." I didn't take it right away. My pride fought every inch of that small distance between his hand and mine. "What if I say no?" I asked. He smiled, a real one this time, sad and soft. "You won't, not for yourself, but for them. You will walk through any door that leads them away from this world." He was right, and we both knew it. My fingers closed around the key. "What happens to you?" I asked. He shrugged slightly. "I do what I do, for as long as I can, but I do it knowing there is at least one corner of this city where my shadow doesn't reach." He looked past me at the window, at the sleeping streets. "You know," he murmured, "when I was a kid I promised myself I would never be small again, never be the one men shouted at. I built my life around that promise. Power, fear, control." He met my gaze again. "You're the first person in 20 years who shouted back and walked away alive." "I threatened to end you," I said, half to remind him, half to remind myself. "And you did," he replied. "Not the way you meant. You ended the part of me that believed I couldn't do one decent thing without losing power." He shook his head. "Turns out power is cheaper than peace." We didn't hug. Men like him don't really know how to. Girls like me don't trust that kind of closeness. But something passed between us in that quiet, an understanding, a fragile bridge built on shared ghosts. He walked me to the door. "From now on," he said, "if you ever see a black car near your building, it won't be mine." "Is that supposed to make me feel better?" I tried to joke, but my voice cracked. "Yes," he said simply, "because it means I kept my word and stayed away." The driver took me home. The city looked different on the way back, like I was already halfway gone from it. 2 months later we moved. My mother cried when she saw the new apartment, sunlight, real windows, no mold in the corners. My brother got into a decent school, I quit the diner. I never saw the black sedan on our street again. Years passed. I studied at night, worked 2 jobs by day. The envelope of money dwindled and then was replaced, quietly, anonymously, by a scholarship that just happened to find me. I knew whose hands were behind it, even if his name never appeared on any paper. Sometimes, late at night, I would search the news. There were always stories. Raids, arrests, bodies. The lion roared in headlines, but I read every line looking for the man who had stood in front of me with a photo of my 4-year-old self in his hand. One winter morning, the headline finally came. Mafia boss El Leon killed in warehouse explosion, police say. No photo of the body, just flames, smoke, tape, anonymous sources, no family listed, no survivors. I sat on my small, clean kitchen floor and cried for a man I had met 3 times, for the father I had lost twice, for the boy he had once been and the monster he had become. I graduated 5 months later. On the day I walked across the stage to receive my law degree, I slipped that old, faded photo into my pocket. My father, his friend, me, all tangled together in ink and memory. Now when young girls come into my office, scared, poor, trapped between landlords and gangs and men who shout, I listen to their stories. I help them find doors out. Sometimes those doors are small and ugly and hard to open, but they lead away from the life that ate my father and the man who tried in his broken way to make it up to me. I still remember the diner, the smell of burnt coffee, the weight of his eyes, the way my voice didn't shake for once when I said, "If you shout at me again, I'll end you." I thought I was signing my death that night. Instead, I ended something else. I ended a lie about my father. I ended the story of a girl who only knew how to be small. And in some quiet corner of a city that never sleeps, I ended a lion's loneliness just for a moment by letting him do one last thing right. He taught me that power without kindness is just another kind of fear. And I taught him briefly that even the most feared man in the city could choose once to protect instead of destroy, and that sometimes that single choice echoes longer than any roar.